There's a reason why building your dream body seems so difficult until you understand this one concept. When you understand this one concept, it's going to change your entire life. It's going to change the way in which you do everything that you seek out to go and improve about yourself, or any small changes in which you want to make to your life, whether that be quitting a bad habit, like I said, getting into your dream shape, starting something new, learning something new. And it can really simply be broken down by these images right here. And this is before you implement what I'm going to say, and this is going to be after. And right now, it probably seems like you're pushing a rock up a hill. And what's driving that rock up the hill is willpower. And if there's anything that we know about willpower, is that it is slowly diminishing. You only have a certain amount of willpower, and you've probably watched the David Goggins video of this guy saying, oh, you just have to force your way through it. But guess what? Eventually, willpower will subside. It will not last forever. It's like a power tank, and eventually once that power is gone, all that progress you made getting that rock to the top of the hill, you might even get it to the top of the hill, will eventually come tumbling back down to the beginning, where you then need to find some more willpower to start that process all over again. However, for some people, doing the thing in which you're trying so hard to do is like the opposite. It's effortless. It's like pushing a rock downhill. This person doesn't need to think about willpower. They just seem to be doing it. And building your dream body is a prime example of that, because to some people, going to the gym 3-4 days a week, eating clean, doing your cardio, moving, that seems like moving a rock up a hill. But for some people, they naturally do it. They look forward to the gym. It's a huge part of their lives. Eating healthy is no longer a diet to these individuals. It's just the way that they eat. And once you can get to this point, this is when progress becomes inevitable, because you are no longer fighting against yourself. You're actually flowing with the motion in which you are exerting through your internal belief system. So what is that? What is the difference between these two situations right here? And it's really subtle. It's so subtle that you've never thought about it before. And that is this one great big word, and that is identity. Identity is who you are, and that's not just who you say you are, that's who you genuinely in your heart of hearts think that you are. And this links to a term in psychology called your self-concept. And your self-concept can be broken down into subsections. So you've got your self-esteem, you've got your self-image, and that's generally just who you exactly view yourself to be, but your self-esteem is how good you feel about yourself. You've got your ideal self that compromises your self-concept as well. And all of these things form together to basically paint a picture of who you truly believe that you are. That can be reinforced by what's going on outside of you, by other people. That obviously fuels to the power of how firmly you believe about this self-concept. But self-concept eventually forms something which we call our identity. And the reason why that is so crucial to making change is because your identity is the beginning and the cascade of the behaviors in which you naturally carry out. Once you start naturally carrying out the behaviors and actions in which you need to do in order to get yourself to where you want to get to, you no longer have to rely on willpower, because it's just your automatic baseline. So we often think that the way in which we're going to get to where we want to get to is solely through action. And that's true. Like, what you do will inevitably get you to where you want to go, right? If you want to get yourself in good shape, it's a clean diet, it's eating naturally whole food ingredients, it's exercising, it's doing this, taking care of your sleep. They're still actions, but sometimes we have to look up the chain to realize why we aren't naturally doing these things. And when you go up the chain, you realize that what causes action is emotion. You naturally feel emotionally inclined to do something. Where does that emotion come from? It comes from a thought. But there is one step above thought which determines your thoughts. That is going back to that original point of identity. Because let's say thoughts become emotions, become things and actions in the way in which we do things. If you naturally identify yourself as the sort of person that just takes care of himself, you're going to think like someone that's in shape. Those emotions are going to be in line with that, and as a byproduct, your actions are going to be. Whereas what people do is they focus so hard on just doing the right things that they constantly feel like they're in this state where they are just faking it. And then eventually that's why it feels so hard, and that's why you have to rely off of willpower, because deep inside you, you've got the identity of being overweight, not liking the way you look, having this low level of self-esteem, which ultimately will mean that you cascade down this chain of events to actions in which aren't aligned with the version of you which you want to become. And the one thing that I love about this and identity is that it speaks about it in the Bible. And it speaks about it through a verse saying, in Genesis, be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. And what that verse in particular is saying is an essential form of your self-concept and manifestation playing out in front of you. To be fruitful, then do the actions of multiply, and then you will have dominion, breaks down the very simple essence of what it means to have your identity aligned with who you're trying to become, right? Because what we normally will say is, and you've probably found yourself saying this, once I have this thing, I will do the actions and then be that person. You said it. You said, once I lose the weight, I will eat clean. Once I achieve my dream body, going to the gym will be easy. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. It's never worked like that. It never ever will. It won't now, and it never will in the future. Okay? We need to reverse this. And instead of doing have, do, be, we have to primarily think from the becoming first. And that be is identity. And once you have the identity and you are the person that naturally does the things, you will inevitably have everything that you want or that is aligned with that be. And that's why we can see this play out in every form of life. You have the body. That's because you do the actions, because you're somebody internally that has the identity of being in shape. Do you see how this plays out? And do you see why you failed in the past to do this? One of my favorite statistics ever is that 90% of people that lose weight end up putting that weight back on again in the next 5 years. How crazy is that? And it's the same with people that win the lottery, right? People that win the lottery come from nothing and all of a sudden they're given 5, 10, 20, 30 million pounds and they then lose it again. I think it's like 75 to 80% of people that win the lottery end up being broke or in debt within the next 5 years. How crazy is that concept? And that's because that aligns with what we were talking about with the identity. You don't have the identity of someone that has money, therefore when you're given it, you don't know what to do with it, you lose it, and you return back to your baseline. There's a creator who's excellent, I cannot remember his name, but I will leave it on the screen. He basically refers to this as the identity thermostat. And this is a fantastic visualization for you because you can imagine what the temperature of the room looks like. And once you have a certain temperature in which the room is naturally set at, you can open the door, some heat will come in, but then eventually it will come back down to that base level in which you've got that thermostat at. And nothing changes until you change that thermostat. You won't change. Nothing. The behaviors might temporarily be affected, but in the long term, you're going to default back to where your baseline sits. And that's why we have to pay such close attention to our identity and work on that first. And the reason why this manifests itself is because of this phrase right here, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is essentially where your brain is working between two conflicting belief systems. You have the belief system in which you're doing the right things to get you in shape, but in the background it's running a process where you don't truly believe that that is you, and it feels out of character. It doesn't quite feel correct. Your brain then goes through the process of cognitive dissonance, and it cannot maintain this for a long period of time. And then eventually what you get yourself stuck in is an identity loop where you will loop back to what you truly believe is true. And your identity loop is essentially the story in which you keep telling yourself. And the more and more which you repeat that story to yourself, the more you reaffirm that to your identity, the more in which this keeps replaying and manifesting itself within reality. So that's why we need to change our internal thermostat. We need to remove cognitive dissonance. We need to break the identity loop. And that's when we're going to be able to start building our dream body or achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve. And here's how we're going to do it. The first thing which you're going to do is work out the difference between the current you and the ideal future self. And that requires an audit. It requires looking through different parts of your life and saying, does this align with who I'm trying to be? Because right now there's a current version of you and there's a reason why there's this gap, and that's quite literally the disparity between the version of you in which you think you are and the version of you which you need to become in order to have what you want. And you need to go through your lifestyle. How is it that the version of you thinks that has the thing that you want? How is it that they act? What is their thought process when it comes to certain behaviors? How do they emotionally respond to triggers? Because you might sit there and go, yeah, but if you were thinking in terms of your ideal future self, you wouldn't still be where you currently are. So you've got to be completely transparent with yourself. and answer this wholeheartedly. Once you've done this, you need to do one simple thing, and that is decide. You need to draw a line in the sand. You need to make a huge decision to say, I'm done with this. This is no longer somewhere that I act out of, and I act right now out of my ideal future self. And I love using the analogy of sleep with people, because how do you fall asleep? Well, you pretend to fall asleep. You pretend to fall asleep for a long enough period of time where you actually fall asleep, and this works the same way. You've got to fake it till you make it, quite literally. Act like your ideal future self. Think like your future self. It should feel like you're putting on this outfit that is pretending, until eventually you're like, yeah, I actually just wear this outfit, and you forget that you were wearing the outfit. That's when you know that you started to embody deeply, truly, on a subconscious and self-conceptual level, the ideal identity of the person that you're trying to become. And the way in which I truly believe in which you make this happen is by making one huge drastic life change. Maybe it's you cut off somebody who's been toxic to you your entire life. This is why you see people after breakups completely revitalize and change, because that was a huge trigger event. Maybe it's you're overweight, so you throw out all the clothes in that current size in which you're at. You burn the boats, you burn the bridges, and that one huge influential action is then what leads to this new version of you, allowing its space to be created. You can't have one foot in the door of your old identity and trying to step into a new one. You have to go, shit, well, I'm making this leap now. So changing something within your world to align yourself with that is how you do it. Maybe it's deleting social media. Maybe it's saying goodbye to this friendship group for an existing period of time. Maybe it's moving. I genuinely think this is probably one of the best things that human beings can do. You decide to move. You have then space to reinvent yourself. You're then not taking in the same environment in which you were previously, which is going to lead you down the same path. Something huge needs to change in your life right now to make this jump. And that's where change begins. The next thing you want to do is start building up small proof. Once you're faking it, once you're pretending to be your ideal future self, you need to start stacking small pieces of evidence within your life that align with that identity. You can't say, oh yeah, I'm a gym goer, I'm somebody with a six pack, and then every Friday and Saturday night you go out on the booze. It doesn't work like that. That's not how this process works, because you are not stacking proof about who you are that you say you are. So whilst at the beginning of this video I referenced actions that said they weren't important, actions are still important, and we can still use actions to start building things up the chain. We just have to have enough conviction behind those at the end of the day to change that identity. So start listing small proof, small pieces of evidence. What are the conversations you're having? What do they evolve around? Environments. This is huge. What environments are you finding yourself frequenting? If you're aligning yourself with somebody that is in shape and you're going to a really bang average gym, go sign up to the best gym you possibly can. Go speak to people that are in that same space that are doing what you're trying to do. If you've got shit food in the fridge, throw it out. If you're still hanging out with fat people, say goodbye to fat people. It sounds very, very drastic, but you have to say goodbye to those people that are holding you back into a previous version of yourself. Is your workspace clean? Is it tidy? Is it conducive to you to get into where you want to get to? Do you still have evidences of the old version of yourself that are then constantly going to bring up those same old thought patterns? You need to start curating your environment very, very carefully to be in line with the version of yourself which you're trying to prove that you are. What wins have you started stacking since you started making that change? What small changes are you seeing within yourself? Are you seeing less fat on your body? Are you finding yourself gravitating to more healthy foods? Write them down. Write down all the small wins in which you're having so you see them clearly, and then that provides the evidence back to you. You said no to that shit bit of food. You said no to going on that night out. And as a byproduct, that starts to provide evidence, because this is all we're trying to do, right? We're trying to find evidence, small bits of evidence that are in line with the version of ourselves which we're trying to become. The more in which you can do that, the more in which you can find evidence, you start to truly believe it. You're like, no, this is not how it works. And then what will eventually happen, and this is the most powerful part about this process, is other people will start to mention it. People will go, you're really looking good. You're taking care of yourself. You're a gym goer now, yeah? And what this does is other people start reinforcing this identity in which you're trying to prove to yourself. And you go, yeah, I am a gym goer. I do this. I do take care of myself. Once again, that starts to reaffirm the identity so much more powerfully. And it takes time. Like, you have to go through this transition where you are pretending a little bit, you are faking it till you make it, but eventually your conversations evolve around evidence in which show that you're getting there. Your environments are conducive to that. You're getting wins, and other people now start identifying you with that version of you. I used to go out every single Friday and Saturday night and get absolutely wankered. And people used to go, oh yeah, you're right laughing on a night out. And that was great, but that continuously fed into my identity as someone that went out and got absolutely hammered every single weekend, the whole weekend. Do you see how that's not conducive to the version of me that I wanted to become? And then eventually, people stopped asking me to go out, and they didn't assign that with my identity anymore. And they didn't feed that old version of me which I was trying to leave behind. But they were like, no, he doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't go out. People stopped asking me to go out. People just knew that that wasn't the sort of person that I was anymore. And then I started attracting new people into my life, which were in line with the version of me which I was trying to become. And that's when this process really starts to catch legs. The problem with making a change is it's very hard at first. That first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month, 2 months, they're the hardest part of this process. And the longer in which you stick with it, the easier it gets. And that's why change is so difficult, because everything is fighting you to stop you getting there. Your body, your brain, people around you, your environments, your old idea of who you were, they're all fighting against you. And you need to break through that through force, and then it starts getting easier and easier. And the final part to making a real everlasting change is something called NLP. It stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And this is very important because words become things, because a word started off as a thought. And the more in which you use language which is out of alignment with the version of you which you're trying to become, the harder it is. If you say I can't do something, and we all know somebody that says that, you probably were that person in the past that says, I just can't do it, I can't do this, you never will be able to. But if you're the sort of person that reframes that I can't to, I'm struggling with this right now, but I can learn, you are going to make it far further than the person that says they can't. Even just that one simple switch puts your foot in the door where previously you shut the door on yourself. You need to stop speaking as the old version of you and change your programming and the way in which you speak to be in alignment with that. Because words are powerful. Your subconscious mind is always listening. And the more in which you speak downly about yourself and against the things in which you're capable of doing, the more in which that's going to transpire against your identity and make that process harder. So this is why affirmations work so beautifully. Although we can't just simply rely on affirmations without everything else aligning. But by saying, I'm in control, I am going to do what I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do this today, and then you follow up with action, you start to build your self-esteem. You start to build that self-confidence, which is in line with that self-concept which we spoke about at the start. You build the self-concept, you realign the identity with the version of you which you're going to become through everything which I mentioned, but in particular, neuro-linguistic programming. And that's how you're really going to start to see change happen very, very quickly. This is why the old approach to change and transformation is broken, because it doesn't focus on that mental shift. Everything's external, everything's action-based, and not at any point during that process do you sit there and go, am I making a mental change right now? Sometimes you can force yourself simply through to mental change through action, but a lot of the time you need to do the internal work to get yourself there. So if you want more one-to-one help and helping you do that, helping to rewire your identity in order to align with the version of you which you're trying to become, make that process as easy as rolling a boulder downhill, then feel free to fill in the application form below, work with me, and we will rewire your identity to turn this into you. Okay? Peace. Much love.